Hi all, welcome to Power Up. I'm Ganesh. And if you've been following along, you know we've been diving into some pretty big concepts around product teams. How do you create autonomy? How do you manage small, efficient teams like the Amazon 2 pizza teams that we discussed? How do you balance freedom with control? And several other things. But today, we're tackling a crucial question. How do you measure success in those autonomous teams? Because let's face it, if you can't measure it, how do you actually know that it's working? I've been in product management for quite a while, and I've had my fair share of experiences managing both highly autonomous teams and teams that require a bit more hands-on guidance. So I'll be sharing some real-life examples today, and this is going to be around what's worked, what's not, and how you can make sure your teams are not only empowered, but are also delivering results. Let's break this down. The first step is to start with clarity, which is before we even get into metrics, we have to talk about clarity. Autonomy without clear goals is like asking a team to run a race without telling them where the finish line is. So step one is defining what success looks like for your team. This is where something like the OKRs comes into picture. And I know this might sound a little idealistic, but trust me, this is really a game changer. If anything, it'll help. I've used OKRs in multiple roles, and they're an absolute game changer. Here's what you're essentially saying. Here's the objective, and here's how we'll know if we've achieved it. I'll give you an example. In one of my previous roles, we had a team working on reducing customer churn. The objective was simple: make customers stick around longer. But the key results were where the magic really happened. We set specific targets. We said, let's reduce churn by 10% in the next 6 months. We also said we'll increase adoption rate of a new feature that we were building at that time by about 15%. With this, the team had something to aim for. And I'll tell you what the best part was. They had the freedom to decide how to get there. Of course, there were guardrails, but they were free to choose how to get there. Whether it was through improving onboarding process or building better engagement features, it was up to them. And that's real autonomy. Let's go to the next one. And that's about tracking. With tracking, it's tempting to think, if I let this team go off and do their own thing, how do I actually know they're actually really making progress? And I'll admit, early on in my career, I made the mistake of checking in too often, and which turned into micromanagement and would often bear down heavily on the folks that I was working with. So here's what I learned. It's all about building an atmosphere where we use the right kind of cadence and the tools to provide those updates. In one of my product teams, we used Jira. And this fundamentally was all the project management updates, the tracking, the status updates, and all of those. But importantly, we kept it lightweight. Every week, the teams would log their progress in a shared space. And it wasn't a formal status update. It was more like, hey, here's what we did, here's what we are stuck in, and here's what's next. And I found this kept everyone in the loop without really interrupting the team's flow. We also at times had calls to kind of discuss this to ensure we're really not taking away too much of time from every single individual in this overall process. But here's what I found is the key. Asynchronous updates are your best friend. Instead of dragging the entire team into meetings to give go live or give live updates, I had them post progress when it works for them. Again, there were guardrails, but they were free to do it within that. As a product manager, I would review the updates in my own time, and if I found something needed attention or intervention, I'd step in and check. Otherwise, I'd let the team run with it. This balance really allowed me to have visibility without being overbearing. The other crucial thing that I realized is success is more than just tracking metrics. We need to look at the qualitative side of it too. And unfortunately, that's something that doesn't really get spoken about or doesn't get enough attention, which is the qualitative success. Of course, metrics are important, but sometimes the most valuable insights come from talking to your teams and your users. I remember one project where we had the team working on improving a certain functionality of our B2B platform. The numbers looked absolutely good. There were enough metrics to go ahead and say we've decreased certain search times and the overall page loading time by, say, about 10 to 15%. But then when we spoke to the customers, we realized there was still frustration around how the results were displayed. We realized if we had only focused on metrics, we would have missed that completely, which is the customer satisfaction and delight. So every few weeks, I made it a point to have informal, qualitative check-ins with the team. We spoke about user feedback, team morale, and what they were learning along the way. Sometimes success is about how the team feels about their work and the product, and it's not just what the numbers say. The other crucial thing that really helped me was to balance long-term and short-term, I would say short-term victories. One of the toughest things that I've had to learn as a product manager is this. How do you balance short-term wins and long-term strategies? Teams can get really caught up hitting their quarterly OKR goals, quarter in and quarter out. And it's easy to lose sight of the bigger picture. I actually had a team that were absolutely crushing their OKRs. They were shipping features like clockworks, adoption rates went up, interest from within the internal teams also were really high. With what they shipped out with the customer check-ins, the customers were also really happy. But after a while, I realized we weren't thinking far enough ahead. We were so focused on the next release that we weren't laying the groundwork for a larger, more strategic initiatives. So here's my advice. Don't just look at your team's quarterly performance. Make sure they're also contributing to the long-term vision of the product. This might mean investing time in refactoring the code or doing some more detailed user research that won't pay off immediately, but will be critical 6 to 1 year down the line, 6 months to 1 year down the line. Finally, let's talk tools. What can you use to measure success without getting in too much in the way of autonomy? Aside from tools like Jira, I'm a big fan of using dashboard for tracking team metrics. We've used internally Google Data Studio and Tableau for real-time visibility into the team's progress. Jira has recently also launched its discovery module where you can look at your time, your progress, the roadmaps, status updates in a extremely simplified, easy to visualize manner. That's something that you could also think of using. Anyway, back to the point. Here's the thing. The one key thing that I've realized is we need to make sure the dashboards focuses on outcomes and not on output or effort. It's not about how many tasks your team is doing or is completing. It's about whether those tasks are moving the needle on your key results. I once worked with a team that was closing tickets like crazy. But when we looked at the actual impact on business, it was minimal. We had to focus on tasks that really mattered. So to wrap it all up, measuring success in an autonomous team is about more than just tracking numbers. It's about setting clear goals, using the right tools to have enough visibility, balancing quantitative metrics with qualitative insights, and also keeping an eye on the long-term vision. Again, autonomy does not mean you let go of control. It means you give your teams the freedom to deliver the results in their own way while making sure everyone stays aligned with the bigger picture. I hope this gave you some actionable insights. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and share it with someone else who's navigating this critical juncture in product development. Thanks for listening in, and I'll catch you soon. Thank you.